question I get on a daily basis, every single day, without fail, is when is the market going to crash? And I keep telling folks, it is not going to crash. Well, when are prices going to drop down 20%? I'm like, it's not going to happen. The market is self-correcting right now. It is amazing to watch. It's actually working exactly like it's supposed to. So what's happening now, and we're just now starting to see it in the HAR report, is that listings are starting to slow down. So for every home buyer, they are also a home seller. It's most of what real estate is. And folks who would be buying a home 6 months ago are looking at that 2 and 3% mortgage, and they're like, well, maybe I should sell my house. Now they're looking at a 7 or 8% mortgage, and they're like, you know, this house ain't so bad. I think we're going to stay right here. So it's taking listings off the market. Now, properties are sitting a little bit longer. I think we're at about 3 months of inventory, 2.7, somewhere around there. So sales are slowing down. But here's the fascinating thing. I went back and looked at the 80s. Now, you've got to remember, everyone talks about the 70s and 80s. Interest rates were actually, some of you more, folks that have a little bit more gray hair than I do remember this. Back in the day when y'all used to walk uphill both ways in the snow to go to school, we had 40% interest rates and we were happy about it. I'm like, I got it. I've heard this my entire career. I got it. You were happy about it. It was great. I hear from my parents all the time, 22%, it was awesome. I'm like, all right, Dad, I got it. When you go back and look at those times, what's very interesting is what happened to the price of real estate? Kept going up. Interest rates went from like 6 to 20 inside of a year. And the median home price kept going up. It's absolutely amazing to watch. This is nothing compared to that. Median home price kept going up. So I'm not sure where the notion, when you really talk to some folks that understand a mortgage market, I always like to ask the question, well, are we talking about sales or are we talking about price? Sales will decline. There'll just be less people that can afford homes. But do the prices fall? And most of the time they don't. In fact, it's almost, when you really start to break it out, usually it's not sales, usually it's the price, usually it's a recession or something else that causes some trepidation in the real estate market. So right now you're seeing something really unique. People are freaking out because they're like, oh, the month-over-month sales price declined. And I'm like, yeah. Do you know what it's called? Winter. Like, we didn't have that in 21 and 20. Like, we didn't have these seasonal adjustments like we normally had, like before 2019. Now we're starting to experience them. So you'll see a report from Redfin. You'll see a report from the guys over at Atom Data are really good. There's a handful of guys that are just like, it's like clickbait 24/7. And they'll sit there and go, no, guys, this is just seasonality. This happens every year. It's kind of like when the sun goes down, like right now, and people start freaking out and go, oh my God, there's no light. It's never going to return. Like, no, just wait 12 hours. And the sun will come up, and it's going to come up over there. It might scare you at first. So what I'm seeing a lot in the real estate market right now are people freaking out about just natural cycles in the marketplace. And if you guys are not reading or listening to Logan Matamashi on Housing Wire right now, you need to. This is one of the few guys that is sane about this whole thing. I found him during COVID, because I was obviously concerned about the market. I mean, we shut down 90% of GDP starting in March. I'm like, oh shit, we might actually need all these guns and bullets we've been prepping for the last 5 years. We might be shooting people in the street. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you literally took away the entire nation's livelihood. I mean, it gets feral real quick, right? So then we started opening things back up. Critical business services were allowed to operate. Of course, you couldn't go to a bar because I guess beer kills people or whatever the deal was. But yeah, you can go to Walmart, right? Yeah. So anyways, the country was shut down, and certain parts of the country are still relatively shut down. I think places in New York and California are still having some challenges. So, and then of course, China has their zero COVID policy, so they keep shutting down cities of 20 million people. It's absolutely crazy. So anyway, all of that is causing all kinds of disruptions in the supply chain. So what's the Federal Reserve response? Well, let's just limit the demand. So if you guys are familiar, there's two sides of inflation. There's demand inflation, there's supply side inflation. So we are experiencing supply side inflation. Like Elon Musk says, there ain't people working to make enough stuff. You don't make stuff, prices go up. It's that simple. So the Federal Reserve response is, well, if I can't control supply, maybe we can control demand. And how do we control demand? By people losing their jobs. That is quite literally what is coming out in the FOMC minutes every single month. You know what would be great is if we had a damn good job loss recession, because that'll bring prices down. But that's a great plan. So that's their plan right now. That's the guys that went to all the right schools, that went to work for all the right investment companies. This is their plan. So what does that mean for us here in real estate land? And I can tell you what's really different. And like I said, I would highly recommend Logan's articles. If you guys have not read the book yet, you need to read Aaron Clary's book called Insider's Guide to the Housing Crisis. Aaron Clary's book. Some of you guys are my mastermind folks. Who has done the reading? Raise your hands. Oh, it's bad. Got to do the reading. Insider's Guide to the Housing Crisis by Aaron Clary. One of the things you will find in that book is that a whole lot of stuff had to happen. A whole lot. It wasn't just like we gave out some bad loans. Like it was a whole cascade of events that happened all at the same time. In fact, in this most recent article Logan has, they talk about it. The number of foreclosures and bankruptcy. If you guys remember in 2005, credit laws changed, and in 2010, bankruptcy laws changed. So it facilitated bad credit to be washed out of the legal system, which all happened right around 2008. Also, Gen X, we are one of the smallest generational cohorts. There's something called household formation. What household formation is, means two people are getting together and having babies. That's what that means. And our generation is really, really small. We're right in between the millennials and the boomers. So our peak years for household formation was 2007. There just weren't enough of us to buy houses. Add to that all of the speculation from home builders over, if you guys probably have not heard this term in 5 or 6 years, overhoused. The nation was overhoused. There were more houses than were people. So there was a cascade of events that really led to that massive crisis in 2008 and 2009. We just don't have that now. What's going to blow people away is as these rates continue to climb, and I think they will in the near term, that house prices are going to continue to go up, especially in the markets that you guys buy in. We all buy in that Airbnb, long-term, short-term, rental market, apartments, that sort of thing. And those affordable homes, which are typically bought by first-time home buyers, are going to continue to be positively impacted by increase in prices. The other thing that's driving prices, millennials are almost as big as the baby boomers, and they are now reaching the age of peak household formation. So all those reports that you read for the last 10 years about how millennials were going to live in apartments like a bunch of bees was nonsense. And when I read them, I'm like, this is not true. You never want to have anecdotal evidence, but it's like anecdotal evidence. This is how it starts. Here's a guy and his girlfriend, they kind of move in together, shared expenses for the awesome Class A apartment complex in the Heights. And then she gets a little dog. And what is that little dog training for, gentlemen? Babies, that's right. I just need this little dog. And you have the little dog at your apartment down the Heights. You live there for 3 or 4 years. You and your buddies are hitting happy hour on Wednesday night, steak night on Tuesday night. Hey, it's game night Thursday night, then you're out all weekend. Well, she gets kind of tired of that pretty quick. And then that biological clock starts ticking. We're running out of time. Got to start having babies. And this is how that conversation goes. We really need a yard for the dog. A yard for the dog? It's 3 pounds. Like, we need a yard for this thing? And of course, the guys go along with it not knowing that they're about to have a baby on the way. And about a year or two later to have a kid, right? As they move out to the burbs, which they swear up and down they would never move to Cypress, Woodlands, Katy, Sugarland. And here they are making the 45-minute commute into Houston. with the little baby thing in the back seat, dropping the kid off at daycare. So if any of this sounds familiar, it should. That is absolutely what's happening now. But we threw COVID into the mix, which kind of screwed some things up. I will tell you this. I'm not saying this is the first time I'll say this publicly. I think one of the worst things about this massive increase in rates is it's stifling demand. Meaning when rates come back down, and they will, it's going to make what happened in 2020 and 2021 look like, I don't know. It's going to make it look like nothing you've seen before, because we've got all this demand sitting on the sidelines waiting to buy a house, but they don't want to do it at 7%. I think they'll start doing it at 4%. So when these rates start to come back down, when they finally get the recession they want, by the way, the election's next week, right? See a lot of this economic data change here in Q4. Might start getting some truth here at the end of Q4, right? So in any case, I think you're going to see a rapid, once those rates start to lower, you're going to see a rapid number of folks just start buying houses. I know a lot of folks who are not in real estate, either a little bit older, ready to downsize, maybe looking to upgrade to a little bit bigger house, or just looking to buy their first house, and they're all sitting on the sidelines. Really, the only consumers that are buying houses are folks that absolutely have to, meaning they're moving here, or maybe a spouse, spouse passed away. I got a message on Facebook of all places from an attorney. It said, hey, I got something. It's an estate. We're doing the probate right now. We need to get a number from you. Can you go out and take a look at it? So unless they need to sell, absolutely must sell, then they're selling. But otherwise, everybody else is sitting tight. And why are they sitting tight? This is a discussion I have with a buddy of mine on Facebook quite publicly all the time. And it's this right here. This is probably one of the most important charts that no one is looking at.
You're out there, and I can tell you that real estate investing is a very lonely business. We may do gurus, and we may do education, and we may do online websites and all that stuff, be in the message boards and feel like there's a connection there. And it can be very, very lonely. And so what we have done is created this mastermind. Now we don't have a big education program. We're not selling books and tapes and DVDs and all that other stuff. What we have set up is a group where like-minded individuals can participate and become wealthy. Now, does it happen overnight? No. That's why we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year program. And as you guys come into this mastermind, you're going to find folks that are just like you. So we lay all this stuff out to really sort of make those transactions to grow your wealth as smooth as possible.
This is the percent of it's the mortgage percent per disposable income. If I could read that, household debt service payments as a percent of disposable income. Meaning, a percentage of that debt, that house, the cost of that house on a monthly basis has never been lower. So when you read some of this stuff, like Case-Shiller is a good example. If he hasn't already won, but he'll win a Nobel Prize for the Case-Shiller Index, even though I think it's terrible. When you look at something like this, what it tells me is consumers have got a lot of room for mortgage payments. It's never been lower, meaning they can well afford the housing payment. And in fact, if you take a look, that's the most recent data. We're back to right before 2019 as a percent of disposable income. One of the stories that's not being told is people's wages are actually rising. It's not fast, but of the percentage of people who are actually buying houses, wages are actually going up. It's kind of surprising. Folks are getting raises. They're leaving companies, going to new companies, and they're getting a lot more money for it. And those folks are buying houses. Why? Because a lot of times they're having to relocate. So that's what's going on here. So when people tell me, Jason, you understand, like rates are going up, real estate market's gonna crash, people can't afford their homes, I'm like, well, this says they're almost as affordable as they were when mortgage rates were 2% 8 months ago, 9 months ago, probably a year ago now. As a percentage of disposable income, they're doing pretty good. The amount of equity homeowners have in their property has never been higher. In fact, 40% of homes in the United States don't even have a mortgage. Somewhere between, I have not looked at the recent data, but somewhere between 20 and 30% of the market are cash buyers. Still. So my former business partner used to say this all the time, and he's absolutely right. When cash buyers step into the market, that usually signals the low in the marketplace, which is interesting because cash buyers have been a significant portion of this marketplace for like 8 years. When a cash buyer steps into a marketplace and says, give me all of that at this price, that's pretty much the bottom of the market. What a lot of people can't get their heads around is like, well, Jason, how could it be the bottom of the market if the market keeps going up? I'm like, they're looking for yield. What do y'all's stock portfolios look like right now? My girlfriend won't even open up her retirement statements at this point. She goes, I don't even want to know. S&P's down 25% year to date. What's Bitcoin? What are we at? Negative 60% or something? Yeah, I thought Bitcoin was digital gold, digital real estate. You know what's so fascinating? Everyone's getting a really great lesson. And you know what that lesson is? What is really inflation adjusted? What's really a necessity and a need, and what isn't? The only thing I can point to right now are commodities, and that oil market's a little squirrely right now, which doesn't, why the oil market is skyrocketing is mind-boggling to me. And real estate. I think one of the things that COVID did is expose the idea that the most important asset is the house and the roof that's over your head, whether you're a tenant or whether you own it. So equity has never been higher. When folks tell me, Jason, there's all these foreclosures coming, I'm like, they're just going to take their equity and run. This is probably one of the most important charts. I got a buddy of mine that's been in mortgage for like 25 years. He's never seen this before. And first time he saw it, I was giving a presentation somewhere. He's like, send that to me. I've never seen that. He's like, that is awesome. I'm like, I don't even know where I got it from. It's one of these articles. This is mortgage originations by credit score. So let me break this chart out into two sections. Starting in this dark gray is 720 and above. So that's this bar and the light blue one. That is 720 credit score and greater. And then below this is 619. So below this is 619 and less. Borrowers that have a 720 credit score, I don't know what their default rate is, but it's got to be less than 1%. You guys know off the top of your head? I can't imagine. It's low. I can't imagine you ever took a property back from somebody who had a 720 credit score. It's got to be, it's got to be super rare, right? So folks who have a 720 credit score, even in a recession, the default rate is almost zero. Well, here's what's interesting. This is 2003. This is a 720 credit score and lower, starting right here. This is 2006, 2007, 2008, and what do you see? 2009, and it just shrinks. Look at this. That's at least half, if not 2/3. Literally just drops like this. That's 720 and above, that's 720 and below. And then it's this big for the last 10, 12 years. If you didn't have a 720 credit score or greater, you weren't buying a house. It's that simple. So these folks have almost a zero default rate anyway. So people tell me, Jason, like there's this big crash coming. I'm like, well, who have they been giving loans to? People with a 720 or greater, by the way, who had to put 20% down. How many of y'all have bought a personal house since 2009? Raise your hands. Was that an easy, fun process? When I bought my first house in 2003, I think I walked in to the builder. We bought it from the builder and did a mortgage, and they go, hey, hold this mirror. I said, okay. And they were like, breathe on it. You're approved for a loan. Now they want blood work from everyone in your family. They want hair samples. They need 7 letters from best friends. They need character witnesses. You have to testify in court at this point. Like, it's ridiculous to get a home loan. And it's been like that for over a decade. So the people that do get a home loan are a very small, that have a 720 or less, are a very small percentage of the population. Really small. And my guess is the folks who have a 720 or lower are probably a lot of business owners that use their credit often. That would be actually my guess, because that's pretty common. This is a stat that just absolutely blew me away. 65% of households now have an interest rate between 2 and 4%. 65%. This is another reason I said rates will go below 1% at some point. Why? Because the largest lobbying group on the planet is the National Association of Realtors, National Home Builders, and the Mortgage Bankers Association. Those are the most powerful trade groups in this country. I know everyone likes to say, oh, it's the NRA, it's the movie folks out in California. I'm like, no, it's not. It's your realtors, your mortgage bankers, and your builders. They are the most powerful lobbying group on the planet. They get people elected, like that's senators elected, like real elections, right? So that's why I'm saying at some point we're going to see mortgage rates below that. Anyway, 86% have rates below 5%. 86%. So here's what I can tell you. Unless I absolutely have to sell, 65% of households ain't going anywhere. They're like, we're good. I'm going to ride this out for a couple of years. Maybe I can convince the wife and we go to Gallery Furniture and kind of spruce the place up with some new furniture. We can stay here for a little while. And then these other folks, 86% have 5% rates or below. Those folks really aren't going anywhere either.
Essentially, those houses are removed from the market.
They are gone from the market. They are absolutely gone from the market. You got almost 86% of the market that just said, no, we're going to hang out for a little bit. Now, what's interesting is they don't have to keep them off the market for like 10 years, just a year or two. And you'll see that inventory shrink. In fact, I skipped over it. It's this one right here. That is our total, that's our national inventory. This comes out of NAR, National Association of Realtors. We're about 1.3 million houses on the market. The crash, we had 4 million homes on the market. So whenever I have a conversation with folks about real estate crashes, I'm like, explain to me how we find 4 million homes. So when the forbearance was running through this country, there was this great article, and I used it every place I went. And there was 2 articles. One article said there will be 4 million houses in forbearance, and they're all going to foreclosure, which is absurd. Then there was an article literally the next day in the same paper that said, we have a national housing shortage, and we need 5 million homes today. And I'm like, okay, so if they all go to foreclosure, they're all just going to get sucked up. We're still going to be 1 million houses to the positive, right? We still need 1 million more homes. So when you get down to the supply and demand issue, there's not enough supply. And Logan Mahamashi, one of the things he says is, we have a dangerous housing market because there's so low inventory. Like 2.7 months of inventory, which is what we're at now, is a wild market. Like it's still crazy. But Austin at one point was 0.6 months of inventory. My brother bought into that market when it was 0.6. He goes, hey, what do I do? I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do. You just write a huge check. I mean, I don't know. He would go in, him and his wife were looking at $600,000-$700,000 houses. They would go in 60 offers, and the realtor would tell them, if you're not 100 G's over list, don't bother. It was absolutely crazy. And they all appraised. That's the other thing. It's like prices kept going up, It was absolutely astounding. Let me see if there's anything else I want to cover. I think that's probably about it. Yeah, that's about it. Do you guys have any questions for me before I bring up our esteemed